I love comedy, and I did comedy in the theater, but I also did drama. And I think if you're an actor, if you're a serious actor, you look at both comedy and drama.
Robert Redford and Barbra Streisand created one of the most unforgettable on-screen pairings in Hollywood history. Their chemistry in The Way We Were became legendary, and fans spent decades wondering why the two never reunited for another film. For years, Redford stayed quiet until now. Join us as we break down what really happened between the two legends. Foundations of a reluctant icon. Robert Redford grew up in a modest neighborhood in Santa Monica, California. His parents, Charles and Martha, worked hard to give their son a stable home. His father was an accountant who believed in discipline and responsibility, while his mother was warm, supportive, and deeply encouraging of his creativity. Their expectations were simple but firm. Work hard, stay focused, and build a steady future. Redford respected those values, but he also felt pulled toward something less predictable. As a child, he showed early signs of artistic curiosity. He liked to sketch, filling notebooks with drawings. He enjoyed sports, especially baseball, which became a big part of his life and helped him fit in with other kids. He also loved going to the movies. Sitting in the dark theater, watching big stories unfold on the screen, gave him a feeling he didn't get anywhere else. These interests didn't point to a clear path yet, but they formed the foundation for the creative life he would later pursue. By the time he reached his teenage years, Redford felt restless. Santa Monica was beautiful, but to him it felt too safe and too expected. He struggled with the idea of following a traditional path, and he often felt out of place in school. He wanted freedom and room to explore. This desire to break away from routine would grow stronger as he got older, shaping many of the choices he made later in life. Redford's life changed dramatically when his mother died while he was still young. Her death left a deep emotional mark on him. She had been the person who believed in his creativity the most, and losing her made him feel unsteady and alone. This loss affected his confidence, and for a while, he drifted without a clear sense of direction. After high school, Redford entered a period of wandering. He drank more than he should have, took small jobs, and moved from place to place without a clear plan. He was looking for something that felt real and meaningful, but he didn't know what that was yet. This phase wasn't glamorous or exciting. It was confusing, heavy, and full of questions he couldn't yet answer. He eventually enrolled at the University of Colorado on a baseball scholarship, but he didn't stay long. He lost the scholarship because of his drinking and dropped out soon after. Even though it was a low point, this setback pushed him toward a new chapter. Redford decided to travel to Europe, where he studied painting and absorbed new experiences. Being far from home helped him gain perspective. He enjoyed learning about art, culture, and expression. It was during this time that he became more aware of his own creative potential. When he returned to the United States, he moved to New York City. There, he discovered the world of theater. He realized that acting combined many things he cared about: emotion, creativity, and storytelling. His interest quickly grew into a serious goal. He decided to train professionally, and this choice set him on the path that would eventually make him a major figure in film. In New York, Redford enrolled at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. He worked hard to develop his skills, taking the craft seriously. He learned how to use his voice, his body, and his presence on stage. He also learned discipline, an important step for someone who had spent years drifting. His early stage work helped him build a reputation as a committed and thoughtful actor. He earned roles in respected productions, including The Iceman Cometh and Barefoot in the Park. These plays helped him gain confidence and showed audiences he had something special. He wasn't loud or flashy on stage. Instead, his quiet intensity made people pay attention. Television roles soon followed. Redford appeared in several guest spots on popular shows of the time. These appearances introduced him to a wider audience and helped him understand the demands of screen acting. Directors and producers noticed his calm, controlled style. It made him stand out. He came across as cool, steady, and quietly charismatic. By the early 1960s, he had built a solid foundation. He wasn't a star yet, but he was climbing steadily, and he was gaining respect from people inside the industry. Redford made his film debut in the 1960s, and his early work quickly caught attention. Directors liked his subtle approach and saw potential in him. Even when he played supporting roles, he brought depth and thoughtfulness to the screen. Hollywood soon realized he had the look and presence of a leading man, but also the seriousness of a true actor. His career shifted into full stardom with two major films, Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid and The Sting. These movies turned him into one of the biggest names in Hollywood. His partnership with Paul Newman became legendary, and Redford's performances showed both charm and emotional weight. As his popularity grew, the Redford brand took shape. He became known for being reserved, thoughtful, and quietly intense. He didn't need big gestures or dramatic speeches to hold the audience's attention. His calm style and natural presence made people feel drawn to him. Even at this early stage of his fame, Redford felt uneasy about certain parts of celebrity culture. He didn't like being controlled by studios or pushed into publicity he didn't believe in. These early tensions hinted at a pattern that would follow him throughout his career. Great success paired with a desire for independence. And next, things get even more revealing as we look at Barbra Streisand's early rise and how their stories eventually collided. Barbra Streisand's meteoric rise. Barbra Streisand was born in Brooklyn to a working-class Jewish family. Her childhood was far from easy. Her father died when she was very young, leaving her mother to raise her and her older brother on a tight budget. The family lived in small apartments, often moving, and money was always a concern. These early struggles shaped Streisand's drive. She learned early that if she wanted something, she had to work for it. Even as a child, she showed strong ambition and a powerful creative spark. She loved singing around the house, putting on small performances, and watching how music could change the mood of a room. She had a voice that adults around her noticed right away. It was strong, unusual, and full of emotion for someone her age, but her childhood was also marked by feeling out of place. Streisand didn't fit the traditional idea of what a young performer was supposed to look like. Kids at school teased her about her appearance, and she often felt like she didn't belong. Instead of breaking her confidence, this feeling lit a fire in her. She wanted to prove herself, not only to others, but also to herself. Her sense of being an outsider pushed her to work harder, dream bigger, and rely on her talent rather than her looks. This determination would become one of her defining traits. When Streisand was a teenager, she set her sights on performing professionally. She started singing at small clubs in Greenwich Village, a neighborhood known for its creative scene. These early performances were raw and emotional. People in the audience instantly recognized that she was different. Her voice wasn't soft or smooth like many singers at the time. It was loud, clear, and full of personality. Before long, word spread, and she became a rising star in the local music world. Her club performances opened the door to Broadway. Streisand landed the lead role in Funny Girl, and it changed everything. The show made her a household name. On stage, she created a new kind of leading lady, bold, funny, emotional, and confident. Her performance wasn't just acting, it felt natural, almost like she was born for the role. This was where the Streisand persona truly took shape. She was witty, sharp, and perfectionistic, always pushing herself to give her best. Record labels took notice, and soon Streisand signed major deals. Her albums became hits almost instantly. Her voice stood out on the radio, on television, and in concert halls. She wasn't just another singer, she was a force. Her early success gave her influence in the industry much sooner than most performers. People listened to her ideas, respected her vision, and understood that she had something rare. With music and Broadway conquered, Streisand turned her focus to film. She moved into movies with confidence, starting with the film version of Funny Girl, which earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress. From there, she continued with major productions like Hello, Dolly. These roles introduced her to a new audience and proved she could shine on screen just as powerfully as she did on stage. But Streisand didn't want to stop at performing. She wanted control over her work. She wanted to shape stories, guide productions, and make decisions that most actors didn't get to make. Over time, she became a producer, and eventually, she stepped behind the camera as a director. This was a rare move for a woman in Hollywood at the time, but she didn't let barriers slow her down. Her reputation grew along with her accomplishments. People knew she was a visionary, someone who understood both the creative and technical sides of filmmaking. She became known for being demanding and highly focused. She insisted on quality in every detail because she believed the final product mattered. Whether people agreed with her methods or not, they couldn't deny her talent or her results. The Way We Were era. The Way We Were began as a project Barbra Streisand cared about deeply. She loved the script, the emotional core of the story, and the complexity of the characters. She also understood that for the film to work, the male lead needed to balance her own strong screen presence. From the very beginning, she pushed hard for Robert Redford. She believed he had the calm, steady quality that would blend with her intensity and make the relationship feel real. At first, Redford wasn't sure he wanted to do it. He respected Streisand as a performer, but he worried the film would end up revolving too much around her character. Streisand was already a major star, and her performances often took center stage. Redford didn't want to play a role that felt secondary or underdeveloped. He also worried that audiences and the industry would see him as simply the handsome half of the pair, instead of a character with his own depth. The studio and the creative team knew he was the best choice, so they worked hard to ease his doubts. The script went through revisions to strengthen the balance between the two characters. Redford was given more scenes, more emotional range, and clearer motivations. He was reassured that the story would belong to both leads, not just one. With those changes, Redford finally agreed. It was a reluctant yes, but a yes nonetheless, and it set the stage for one of the most memorable pairings in film history. Once filming began, it was clear that Redford and Streisand had instant chemistry. Even people behind the camera noticed the spark. Their characters, Katie and Hubble, were opposites, and that same contrast existed between the actors. It created a natural tension that brought their scenes to life. But their styles were very different. Redford favored a minimalist approach. He believed less was more, and he often worked quietly, focusing on small gestures and subtle expressions. Streisand, on the other hand, brought a strong emotional force to every scene. She liked to explore feelings openly and wasn't afraid to push boundaries. These differences sometimes caused friction. They clashed over line readings and how certain emotional moments should play out. Streisand liked improvisation, while Redford preferred sticking closer to the script. They both cared about the final product, but their methods didn't always match. At times, this led to small arguments or moments of tension on set. Still, their relationship wasn't all conflict. Between takes, they shared real, warm moments. They talked about their careers, their views on fame, and their personal lives. Redford admired Streisand's drive and intelligence. Streisand admired his calm confidence and the way he approached the craft. Even with their differences, they were curious about each other, and that curiosity added depth to their on-screen relationship. As filming went on, Redford still had private doubts. He sometimes felt overshadowed by Streisand's bold style and strong personality. Her presence both on and off camera was powerful, and he worried that no matter what he did, she would remain the center of attention. He also sensed that the movie was gradually shifting toward her character's emotional journey. While he respected the story, he couldn't help feeling that the balance he had been promised was slipping away. To him, it seemed like the film was becoming more aligned with Streisand's vision than the original shared concept. Another concern weighed on him: the media. Both actors were already famous, and journalists loved to create romantic stories about co-stars. Redford disliked having his personal life pulled into the spotlight, and he knew working closely with someone as high-profile as Streisand would only increase that pressure. He feared being talked about, analyzed, or misunderstood outside of the film itself. These quiet worries stayed with him long after filming ended and played a major role in the decisions he would make later. And next comes the part everyone wonders about: why Redford refused to work with Streisand again despite their unforgettable chemistry. Why Robert refused to work with Barbra again? After The Way We Were became a major hit, studios quickly started looking for ways to bring Robert Redford and Barbra Streisand back together. A sequel was pitched more than once, and several unrelated scripts were sent to both of them with hopes they would reunite. On the surface, Redford was always polite about these suggestions. He never dismissed them harshly. Instead, he stuck to calm and firm refusals. He would say the timing wasn't right, or that the story didn't feel strong enough, or that he was focused on directing. But behind the scenes, the answer was always the same: no. Streisand, on the other hand, showed interest in working with him again. She admired their chemistry and believed they could create another powerful project together. She made it known, both privately and publicly, that she was open to taking on a new film with him. Whenever the idea came up, though, Redford always communicated his refusal carefully. He didn't want to hurt her or create tension. He respected her talent and didn't want to appear dismissive. Still, his boundaries were clear, even if he rarely explained them out loud. Over the years, pieces of the truth slipped out, and eventually it became clear why Redford avoided collaborating with Streisand again. His reasons were personal and professional, and many of them had been building from the moment they worked together. Redford felt that Streisand's perfectionism, while impressive, left little room for spontaneity. She liked to shape scenes closely and was deeply involved in every detail. Redford's style was different. He believed in natural reactions and quiet moments. He felt that when someone tried to control the entire environment, it made it harder for him to work freely. He also worried about losing part of his artistic identity around her. Streisand had a very strong presence, both as a performer and as a creative force. Redford respected that, but he feared that being paired with her again would place him in her shadow, both on screen and in the larger conversation about the project. He wanted to keep a sense of independence in his work, and he felt another collaboration could blur that line. Their personalities on set were almost opposite. Redford was quiet, internal, and steady. He often delivered performances that were subtle and controlled. Streisand worked with high energy and strong emotion. She wasn't afraid to be bold and expressive, and she often made suggestions or adjustments during scenes. These differences didn't ruin their work on The Way We Were, but they did make it challenging. Redford later shared that the emotional intensity of their time together left him drained. It wasn't that he disliked Streisand, he admired her, but their professional rhythms didn't match. The idea of repeating that experience felt overwhelming to him. Redford had always been private. He didn't enjoy being the center of gossip, and he made an effort to keep his personal life out of the spotlight. The media, however, loved the idea of him and Streisand as a real-life couple. Even though their relationship was strictly professional, rumors spread quickly. Interviews, articles, and fan stories painted them as romantic figures, and Redford hated that attention. At the same time, she stayed respectful. She didn't push him publicly or make their differences a source of drama. Still, there was frustration. She saw something rare between them on screen, and she wished he felt the same. A complicated friendship. After The Way We Were, Robert Redford and Barbra Streisand went on to lead separate but equally impressive careers. Their paths didn't cross often, at least not publicly. When they did meet, it was usually at award shows or industry events. These interactions were brief, but warm. They would exchange smiles, a few words, and a quick hello before moving on to their separate circles. Nothing dramatic ever happened, but people around them always sensed a quiet connection. Even though they weren't close friends in the day-to-day sense, there was a mutual respect that never faded. Both understood the pressures of fame, the demands of perfection, and the weight of being seen as icons. They didn't need constant contact to appreciate each other. Still, there remained a noticeable emotional distance, which Redford preferred and Streisand accepted, even if she didn't always fully understand it. Despite their physical and emotional distance, each held a private admiration for the other's work. Streisand often spoke highly of Redford's transition into directing, especially his films Ordinary People and Quiz Show. She recognized how much skill it took not only to act but also to move behind the camera and tell powerful stories. She admired his ability to shape performances and handle complex themes with care. To her, this showed depth and courage, and she didn't hide her respect. Redford, in his own way, was equally impressed with Streisand. He saw her ability to reinvent herself again and again, surviving shifts in music, film, and public taste. He respected the risks she took, directing films, producing major projects, and pushing for creative control at a time when few women had that opportunity. He knew how demanding that role was, and he acknowledged her strength privately, even if he rarely said much publicly. Their relationship worked best from afar. The intensity they shared on set didn't vanish. It transformed into something quieter but still strong. They understood each other better than most people in the industry because they had seen each other in moments of real vulnerability. They weren't close in the traditional sense, but they shared a bond built on memory, respect, and a unique chapter of their careers. This kind of connection didn't require regular contact. It simply existed, steady and unchanged. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, studios tried several times to create a film that would bring Redford and Streisand back together. These efforts weren't small. Executives believed the public would be thrilled to see them reunite, and they pushed hard for scripts that could recapture the magic of their earlier collaboration. Some of these projects came close to becoming real opportunities. The Quiet Battle. Long before Robert Redford became a Hollywood icon, he had already been exposed to drinking during the bohemian years of his youth. When he traveled through Europe as a young man studying painting, he spent nights in small bars, cafes, and artist hangouts. Drinking was common in those circles, and at the time it felt like part of the lifestyle. It was a way to loosen up, to blend in, and to push away the uncertainty he felt about his future. Those early habits didn't seem harmful then, but they planted something that would linger long after he became famous. As his career took off, the pressure that came with fame made alcohol a quiet escape. Redford was known for staying calm under stress, but the truth was that he often felt overwhelmed. Interviews, expectations, public image, and the fear of losing control all wore him down. Alcohol became a private companion that helped him take the edge off. It didn't interfere with his work at first, but it slowly became something he relied on when the spotlight felt too bright. Ironically, The Way We Were, one of the biggest successes of his early career, added to his inner turmoil. The film's emotional weight, combined with the intense attention from fans and the media, made him feel exposed. People began to look deeper into his personal life, and rumors about him and Barbra Streisand made headlines. Redford hated this type of attention. The success he earned only pushed him further toward habits he kept hidden. What the public saw was a polished professional. What he lived with was a growing urge to disconnect from the noise. As the years went on, people close to Redford started to notice changes. Friends saw moments when he withdrew without explanation. They sensed mood swings that didn't match his usual level-headed personality. He tried to hide the signs, but the effort to appear controlled only added to the strain. Redford valued discipline and independence, but alcohol complicated those values. He wanted to manage every part of his life, his craft, his public image, and his emotions. But drinking took away some of that control. He knew this, and the tension between who he wanted to be and how he was coping caused real frustration. Working with strong personalities often heightened these feelings. Streisand was one example. Her drive, confidence, and high expectations pushed Redford to perform at his best, but they also stirred his insecurity. She was bold and expressive, while he was quiet and internal. After filming ended, he sometimes replayed moments in his head, questioning himself and worrying whether he measured up. Alcohol became a way to smooth out those doubts, even if only for a moment. His relationships also suffered in small but noticeable ways. Redford wasn't the type to talk openly about his struggles, so the people around him often felt confused or shut out. He didn't lash out or create drama, but his emotional distance made it hard for others to understand what he was going through. Behind the calm exterior, he carried a sense of disappointment in himself, even though he rarely admitted it. Redford's turning point came when he faced a personal wake-up moment, something that made him confront the reality he had been avoiding. Whether it was a health scare, a difficult conversation, or a moment alone that forced him to look honestly at his life, it hit him hard enough to make him change direction. He realized he couldn't keep living with the quiet weight he had been carrying. These steps didn't erase the past, but they helped him reclaim his life on his own terms. Redford's passing. On the 16th of September 2025, Redford died at the age of 89 at his home in Sundance, in the mountains of Utah. According to his longtime publicist, Cindy Berger, he passed away at the place he loved, surrounded by people he loved. His family asked for privacy, and no cause of death was immediately given. News of his death spread quickly across the world. Major outlets reported it as breaking news, emphasizing not just his fame as an actor, but also his importance as a director, producer, environmental advocate, and champion of independent cinema. Obituaries highlighted the key films that defined each stage of his career: Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Sting, All the President's Men, The Way We Were, Ordinary People, A River Runs Through It, Quiz Show, and many more. Almost immediately, tributes began to pour in from fellow actors, directors, and public figures. Meryl Streep, who worked with him on Out of Africa, called him one of the lions of film and spoke of him as a dear friend whose presence would be deeply missed. Jane Fonda, his co-star in Barefoot in the Park and a friend for many years, said that his death hit her hard and described him as a beautiful person in every way, both on screen and off. Barbra Streisand also released a heartfelt statement, remembering him as charismatic, intelligent, intense, and one of the finest actors she ever worked with. Dustin Hoffman, his co-star in All the President's Men, and journalist Bob Woodward, whom Redford portrayed in that film, both spoke of his integrity and long-term friendship. Together, these voices painted a picture of a man who was not only talented but also principled and loyal. Political figures and cultural leaders joined in as well. Statements from journalists, festival organizers, and fellow activists emphasized his role in reshaping American film culture. They pointed to Sundance as a turning point for independent cinema, a place that helped launch films like Precious, Manchester by the Sea, Get Out, and many others that might never have reached large audiences without his support. His death didn't feel like a sudden disappearance. It felt like the closing of a long, carefully lived life. He had been a star of the 1960s and 1970s, a serious director in the 1980s and 1990s, and a guiding figure for younger filmmakers in the decades after that. When he finally passed, he did so in the place he chose, in the landscape he loved, after more than 60 years of shaping film and culture. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new one.